Today's video is going to be all about fall gourmand fragrances, and this is one of my favorite categories ever. So if you want to find out more, then please keep on watching. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you're visiting. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I already mentioned in the intro, today's video is going to be all about fall gourmand fragrances, and this category is one of my favorites. I found it really hard to condense this list down. So I've got more fragrances than I would normally recommend in a video, but they are good ones. So I hope you do enjoy this video. But before we get started on the content, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. I know that 70% of my watchers don't actually subscribe to my channel, so I would really appreciate it if you could do so. It does really help my channel out. So now that's out of the way, let's get started on my first fragrance recommendation. So my first recommendation is doing the rounds on YouTube at the moment. And there is a good reason why, because this fragrance is incredibly delicious. And I have to say, this is my most complimented fragrance recently. This one, without a doubt, will always get me a compliment when I wear it. And I wore it out into London the other day. It was a little bit of a layering combination, which I will share in a future video, and I can't tell you how many compliments that layering combination gave me. It was the most complimented I have ever been from a fragrance / layering combination, so we'll get to that one soon. But I feel like Bianco Latte by Giardini di Toscana is going to be one of the best gourmand vanilla fragrances that you could wear this fall and winter. This one definitely shines best in the cooler weather. Now, I did wear this a little bit in summer. I couldn't help myself, but I do feel like this one shines best in the cooler weather, as I mentioned. Now, in essence, this is mostly a caramelized vanilla fragrance. Just think of sticky, dense vanilla. That is what I mostly get from this. It has a very slightly spiced quality to it. Think about a bakery and there is some kind of a delicious cake cooking. That is the vibe I get from this, or a very luxurious vanilla ice cream. This is not lactonic, but I do feel like it's got a creamy quality to it, and I have reviewed this one quite a few times already on my YouTube channel, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. You're probably sick of hearing people talk about this one, but if you have not got your nose on this and you love vanilla fragrances, you are missing out. That's all I can say. Try to get a sample of this one. I will link somewhere down below. But Bianco Latte, yeah, chef's kiss. It's a winning fragrance for this category and the vanilla category, without a doubt. Next up, I want to recommend a more affordable option, and it is none other than Coffee Addict by Theodoros Kalatinis. This is such an amazing gourmand fragrance. I feel like Theodoros Kalatinis does gourmands at an affordable price point like none other. Now, Coffee Addict, I feel like, is very appropriate for the fall season because to me, this smells very similar to tiramisu. Now, of course, tiramisu has coffee in it, this is a very creamy cappuccino with some nutmeg dusted on top, or it's straight up tiramisu to my nose. Very, very gourmand, very, very sweet, has amazing longevity, and for the price point, you can't really go wrong with this type of scent profile as long as you like it sweet and as long as you like gourmands. There are so many other fragrances from this house that I will also recommend for this list, but I feel like Coffee Addict fits the best, and if you are looking for a sweet coffee fragrance, check this one out. Next up, we have a trusty favorite that featured in quite a few of my videos this time last year, and it is none other than Stephane Humbert Sand Dance. And Stephane Humbert Lucas has some Gourmand quality fragrances. However, I feel like Sandance is the most gourmand in the collection and the fragrance that really does suit the fall and the winter. And to me, this smells like a creamy liquor. So we have like an Irish creamy liqueur drink here in the UK. I don't know if you have it anywhere else in the world, but this is definitely a comforting, boozy fragrance that has a real creamy quality to it. It's not milky, but it's definitely creamy. Very, very boozy. You've got a soft sandalwood throughout, a slight bit of spice, a beautiful boozy quality to it. And I explained this last year as reminding me of being in a cozy pub somewhere or a cozy bar. I am wearing a cozy sweater, something like cashmere, and I'm sat by a fireplace drinking some kind of liqueur drink that's got a little bit of spice in it. This is the vibe I get with Sandance. Absolutely incredible unisex fragrance, which has a mega sillage, at least on me anyway. And I just think this fragrance is one of the best in this category. A little bit more complex than some of the other fragrances that I'm going to mention today. This definitely smells luxury, niche quality, and I would highly recommend you getting your nose on Sandance if you like the sound of a slightly creamy, boozy sandalwood fragrance with a little bit of spice. Sandance definitely hits the mark for me. Next up, we have Commodity Milk, and I spoke about this fragrance quite a lot last year, and it is still such an amazing fragrance. Now, commodity is a really interesting concept. Some of you might already know this, but each fragrance comes in 3 different scent profiles. Now, this is the expressive version, which sits right in the middle. You then have a personal version, which is slightly more of a skin scent, but people around you will definitely still smell it. And then you have the bold version, which is of course meant to fill a room. And each version has a slightly different nuance. Now, the expressive version of Milk is my personal favorite, but I'm not gonna lie, I like all 3 of them. I find this one suits my preferences the most. It's not too smoky, which I'll get to in a minute, and it's not too sweet. Now, Milk reminds me of roasting a marshmallow over a fire pit. It's got a woody base and it smells a little bit smoky, but then it's very sweet. Well, I don't want to say very sweet. It's got a beautiful vanillic tonka bean marshmallowy sweetness that comes through. And then of course, it's a little bit milky, but that milk I perceive more to be in that marshmallow vibe. Really, really comforting and delicious. Now, the bold version of this is quite smoky. So if you don't like your smoky fragrances, I would sample either the personal version of this or this one, the expressive, because it's very subtle in comparison. But yeah, I love my kind of tonka bean vanillic fragrances. This has a slight edge with that woody smokiness, and I just find this fragrance so attractive, so comforting, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, highly recommend Commodity Milk as a gorgeous fall gourmand fragrance. Next up, I would like to recommend Ultimate Aphrodisiac by Vivamor. This is one of the most gourmand fragrances within my collection and one of the most unique. It's very nutty, yet very sweet. It smells like cacao butter. Oh, this one is so incredible. And I don't hear people talking about this. I might be wrong. Now, this is a sister company to Navitus, and I must say, I have found so many gems from Vivamor. I actually prefer the Vivamor fragrance collection. It's just a little bit more to my taste. But in terms of ultimate fall gourmand, Ultimate Aphrodisiac is where it's at. So I'm going to read you the notes from my phone because I feel like the notes listed kind of sum this fragrance up really well. Now this is my definition of note porn. It has bitter almond, rum and cinnamon, cacao butter, brown sugar and chocolate, vanilla, musk and coffee. Wow. This to me, as I mentioned, is just the most delicious gourmand fragrance that has a huge sillage, and I think it's just incredible. Yeah, I get cacao butter. I do get vanilla. I get lots of almond, but it's more of a dry almond. It's not marzipan-y in any way. I get the chocolate. I get the brown sugar. I get a little bit of rum. Oh, this one is a fragrance that you need to experience if you are into your gourmands. Would highly, highly recommend this. And if you are after a chocolate fragrance, which is not too in your face, not too sickly sweet. Now, I do think this fragrance is sweet, but the cacao butter, the cinnamon, the rum, it does balance this fragrance really well. And I do need to review this one in more detail. But yeah, ultimate aphrodisiac. Chef's kiss for fall and winter. Next up, we have Velvet Tonka by BDK. And I feel like fall season calls for tonka bean fragrances. I've noticed a little bit of a theme within my choices here. And I haven't actually reached for Velvet Tonka since last year, but it is one of my favorite tonka bean fragrances within my collection. This one is a little bit more marzipan-like. It has a slight Play-Doh-y vibe to it, but to be honest, I love that Play-Doh-y vibe. It gives me a similar vibe to what you get from Dior's Hypnotic Poison in terms of that vanilla tonka bean almond composition, but I just find this one so addictive. And when people come over and sample fragrances from my collection, this one is normally a hit with most people. I feel like it's a very likable scent profile. It's sweet, but not too sweet. It's comforting. The one thing I will say is, whilst it does last on my skin, it becomes a little bit of a skin scent throughout the day and doesn't have as much projection as some of the other fragrances within this list, but I absolutely love this composition. It's a very cozy tonka bean, and if you love tonka bean fragrances and you have not sampled Velvet Tonka, this is another one that I would recommend you getting your nose on. The next fragrance is from Atelier Materi, and this is Cacao Porcelana. And this is, of course, another cacao fragrance, as the name suggests. But to me, this is more of a dry, almost powdery chocolate fragrance that goes in a little bit of a different direction from these other recommendations. It's not super sweet, although you do have a tonka bean in here too. It does have a white tobacco note, which really grounds this fragrance and stops it from being too cloying and too sickly. You have rum and immortelle at the top. So the rum adds a nice boozy sweetness, but the immortelle pulls it back a little bit and stops it being overly sweet. There's some patchouli in the base. It's got sandalwood too. But overall, the feeling of this is it's a dusty chocolate fragrance or powdery chocolate fragrance with quite a big dose of patchouli. Actually, you're definitely going to get the patchouli. And if you're not a fan of patchouli, I would recommend sampling this one before blind purchasing it. So if you're not a fan of patchouli, you'll definitely want to sample this one first. I get a little bit of rum. I do get the tonka bean. The sandalwood's there. It's not super creamy. I would say it's quite dry. But overall, this composition is quite a classy chocolate fragrance. Very different from the other fragrances. I would say this is most similar to Sand Dance, but Sand Dance to me is even more gourmand. But I feel like if you like your gourmands, but you don't like them to be too sweet, too in your face, and too literal, then maybe try out Cacao Porcelana, because this one is a fine balance between taking it too far in the gourmand composition. The next fragrance is from the House of Oud, and this one is called Dates Delight. This one is so appropriate for the fall and the winter. This one is very sweet. It could be cloying for some people, however, I absolutely love it. It's sweet, dense, and sticky. You, of course, have dates in here, but there's also a big dose of honey. You've got a little bit of spice too. There's a tad little bit of florals in here. There's a peony note, which isn't super prominent to my nose. You've got caramel, you've got cinnamon, there's a sugar note, lots of vanilla, tonka bean. This fragrance is a sweet gourmand through and through. If you like fragrances that are similar to Parfums de Marly Ojan, Angel Share by Kilian, that type of scent profile, then you will probably love this fragrance. And I don't know why, but when I sprayed this on my husband the other day, I always test fragrances on both of our skin chemistries because fragrances pull really different on me versus him. So I like to be able to get a rounded opinion on a fragrance when I'm testing it, because obviously fragrances react on different skin chemistries. And on James, this pulled a little bit like Dr. Pepper, but it was quite sweet and sticky. I guess Dr. Pepper is sweet and sticky. I get more of a spicy cinnamon, tonka bean, honey fragrance. But yeah, I just thought I would note that one. My hair got stuck on my hand then. But yeah, I highly recommend Dates Delight for the fall season, especially if you really enjoy your gourmand fragrances. And last, but absolutely no means least, we have the infamous Chocolate Queen by Navitus. And if you don't already know, this is the collaboration between Gabby Loves Perfumes and Navitus. And I would say this is a chocolate lover's dream, or a gourmand lover's dream. And if you don't watch Gabby's channel, she absolutely loves gourmand fragrances, so it's no surprise that she released such a gourmand fragrance. Now, this has been out for quite a while now, and it was constantly selling out, but I do have it in my collection. I've had it in my collection now for 3 to 4 months, and we are finally getting into the season where I can wear this one. And I've had a few friends and family come over and they reach for this and they're like, oh my gosh, it smells like chocolate. And yes, obviously the label says that, but this really does have a chocolate vibe to it. It also has fudge, dulce de leche, it has hazelnut, it has Irish cream, I think it has praline, it has all of the gourmand notes in here. And to me, this is very chocolatey. It's very chocolatey, but I get a lot of the Irish cream personally. Oh, this is delicious. I get a milk chocolate vibe from it. I'm going to spray it on my hand actually. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. I get a slightly nutty quality from it, but it's not super nutty. Yeah, very chocolatey, very boozy, but that creamy Irish cream. I do get the fudge too. I'm now also getting dark chocolate now it's sprayed on my skin. Yeah, absolutely delicious. Highly recommend sampling this if you have not already. I'm sure if you're a chocolate lover, you've probably already sampled this one. But if not, I would highly recommend doing so because this is absolutely perfect for the fall and winter season, as I've already mentioned. And I just want to say a massive well done to Gabby on this one because I don't think I've spoken about it on my channel yet. I think this is such an incredible fragrance. So that was all of the fragrances that I wanted to discuss in today's video. I of course have so many other incredible gourmand fragrances that I could have included in this list, so I might potentially do a part 2. We shall see, but please do let me know if anything stood out to you or if you want to see more detailed reviews. Drop that in the comments below. But what I want to know is, what are your favorite fall gourmand fragrances? Please do share. I find the best recommendations in the comments section. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Thank you so much and goodbye.